Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. We'll begin the reading of from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17 today. After these short prayers to the spiritual master. Om Ajnatimarandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Welcome, dear devotees, and I see Achna Mataji has also joined us. So, Achna Mataji, can you read today?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranams, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Yes, Mataji.
Veera Mataji joined.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I will update the reading order.
Fantastic. So, just please add yourself, and Achna Mataji is already added there, so we are good. And I will start sharing my screen momentarily as soon as I get my dear Facebook watchers online here. And let's see. There we are. Facebook never gives me a dull moment here. Okay, fantastic. Yes. Okay. So Kathy Mataji is there. She's
Meera Mataji, you will be able to read, right? And I see Priyanka Mataji.
Yes, I will be. Thank you.
Thank you. I won't be able to read, so I just wrote Vindyavali Mataji's name after Meera Mataji's name.
All right, we will miss you.
But I will keep updating the order, so whenever someone joins.
All right. It's austerity of speech. But this is not austerity of speech, not reciting from the Vedic scriptures. But anyway, I appreciate that.
For first few minutes, I won't be. I will add my name if I'm
Later on, okay, then there is some hope in this life. Good. Okay, so I'll get started. Who's going to go in first to read?
So the reading order is Vindyavali Mataji, then Simi Mataji, Sutappa Mataji, Varshana Mataji, Sukomal Radhe Mataji, Priyanka Mataji, Archana Mataji, Meera Mataji, and then Vindyavali Mataji.
Okay.
After me is Shraddha Mataji.
You miss Sadhana Mataji.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it got changed. The screen got changed. So Sutappa Mataji, Sadhana Mataji, and Varshana Mataji. Thank you.
Okay. So should we get going then, Vindyavali Mataji? What do you say? You have to unmute yourself first.
Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Chapter 17, the divisions of faith. Text 1. Arjuna inquired, O Krishna, what is the situation of those who do not follow the principles of scriptures, but worship according to their own imagination? Are they in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance? Text 2. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds, in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. Now hear about this, Sutapa Mataji.
Simi Mataji.
Simi Mataji.
Hare Krishna. O son of Bharata, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. Men in the mode of goodness worship demigods, those in mode of passion worship demons, and those in mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. Suttapa Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Text 5 and 6. Those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, who are foolish and who torture the material elements of the body, as well as the supersoul dwelling within, are to be known as Mataji, Shraddha Mataji, demons. Text 7. Even the food each person prefers is of three kinds, according to the three modes of material nature. The same is true of sacrifices, austerities, and charity. Now hear of the distinction between them. Shraddha Mataji.
Thank you. Text 8. Foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purify one's existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. Text 9. Foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, burning are dear to those in the mode of passion. Such foods cause distress, misery, and disease. Varshalama.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Text 10. Food prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten. Food that is tasteless, decomposed, and putrid, and food consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to those in the mode of darkness. Text 11. Of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed according to the directions of scripture as a matter of duty by those who desire no reward is of nature of goodness. Hare Krishna.
Text 12. But the sacrifice
Sukho.
But the sacrifice performed for some material benefit or for the sake of pride, O chief of the Bharatas, you should know to be in the mode of passion. Text 13. Any sacrifice performed without regard for the directions of scripture, without distribution of prasadam, spiritual food, without chanting of the Vedic hymns and remunerations to the priests, and without faith is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. Priyanka Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Text 14. Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. Text 15. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. Archana Mataji.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. Text 16. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Text 17. This threefold austerity, performed with transcendental faith by men, not expecting material benefits but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity in goodness. Hare Krishna. Meera Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Text 18. Penance performed out of pride and for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in the mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent. Text 19. Penance performed out of foolishness with self-torture or to destroy or injure others is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Hare Krishna. Vindhyavali Mataji.
Text 20. Charity given out of duty without expectation of return at the proper time and place and to a worthy person is considered to be in the mode of goodness. Text 21. But charity performed with the exception of some return or with a desire for fruitive results or in a grudging mood is said to be charity in the mode of passion. Simi Mataji.
Hare Krishna. And charity performed at an impure place, at an improper time, to unworthy person, or without proper attention and respect, it to be said in the mode of ignorance. From the beginning of creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate supreme absolute truth. These three symbolic representations were used by Brahmins while chanting the hymns of Vedas and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme.
Text
Sutapa
24.
Mataji.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Therefore, transcendentalist undertaking performance of sacrifice, charity, and penance in accordance with scriptural regulations Begin always with Om to attain the Shraddha-mataji, Supreme. Text 25. Without desiring fruitive results, one should perform various kinds of sacrifice, penance, and charity with the word Tat. Thus, the purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from material entanglement. Shraddha Mata.
Thank you. Text 26 to 27. The absolute truth is the objective of devotional sacrifice, and it is indicated by the word Sat. The performer of such sacrifices is called Sat, as are all works of sacrifice, penance, and charity, which, true to the absolute nature, are performed to please the Supreme Person, O Son of Pratha. Text 28. Anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme or Son of Pratha is impermanent. It is called asat and is useless both in this life and the next. That's that.
Haribol. Okay. So we will continue reading. And I know Varshana Mataji had a question yesterday on text number 3. So today, actually, we are going to do text number 3. So let's get going, continuing on with our reading. After sadhana, it is Varshana Mataji's turn to read. Okay, go ahead, Mataji. And if you are reading on mute, then you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, Mother. Sattva, satatva,
Sattvanurupa. Sattvanurupa.
Sattvanurupa. Thank you, Mother. Sattvanurupa sarvasya shada bhavati bharata shraddhamayo yam purusho yo yachadha sa eva sa sarvasya.
Not sarvasye, right?
Okay.
Yeah. This is Sanskrit, not Tamil. Okay. Sattvanurupa sarvasya. All right. So who's next?
Sattvanurupa sarvasya.
Sarvasya.
Shraddha bhavati bharata shraddha vayo yam purusho.
Yeah, don't repeat it. Yeah, let's go to the next.
Okay. Sattvanurupa, according to the existence, sarvasya, of everyone, Shraddha, faith, Bhavati becomes Bharata, O son of Bharata, Shraddha, faith, Maya, full of, I am this, Purushaha, Mayaha, full of, I am thus, this, Purushaha, living entity, Ya, who, Yat, having which, Shraddhaha, faith, Saha, thus, Eva, certainly, Saha, he. Priyanka Mataji.
Translation. O son of Bharata, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. Archana Mataji.
Purport. Everyone has a particular type of faith, regardless of what he is. But his faith is considered good, passionate, or ignorant according to the nature he has acquired. Thus, according to his particular type of faith, one associates with certain persons. Now, the real fact is that every living being, as is stated in the 15th chapter, is originally a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, one is originally transcendental to all the modes of material nature. But when one forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and comes into contact with the material nature in conditioned life, he generates his own position by association with the different varieties of material nature. Hare Krishna, Meera Mataji.
Hare Krishna. The resultant artificial faith and existence are only material. Although one may be conducted by some impression or some conception of life, originally he is nirguna or transcendental. Therefore, one has to become cleansed of the material contamination that he has acquired in order to regain his relationship with the Supreme Lord. That is the only path back without fear. Krishna consciousness, there's the only path back without fear, Krishna consciousness. If one is situated in Krishna consciousness, then that path is guaranteed for his elevation to the perfectional stage. If one does not take to his path of self-realization, then he is surely to be conducted by the influence of the modes of nature. Hare Krishna. Vidya Vali Mataji.
Aruni Mataji
Vindhya.
joins.
Aruni Mataji.
Yeah, if she wants to read.
Hare
Krishna.
And then Sukharupa Mataji also joined. Sukharupa Mataji, will you be able to read?
Yes, Mataji, I can read.
Okay, so I will add your name. You will read after Aruni Mataji.
Okay, sure, Mataji.
The word Shraddha of faith is very significant in this verse. Shraddha of faith originally comes out of the mode of goodness. One's faith may be in a demigod or some created god or some mental concoction. One's strong faith is supposed to be productive of works of material goodness. But in material conditional life, no works are completely purified. They are mixed. They are not in pure goodness. Pure goodness is transcendental. In purified goodness, one can understand the real nature of the supreme personality of Godhead. As long as one's faith is not completely in purified goodness, the faith is subject to contamination by any of the modes of material nature. The contaminated modes of material nature expand to the heart. Therefore, according to the position of the heart in contact with the particular mode of material nature, one's faith is established. It should be understood that if one's heart is in the mode of goodness, his faith is also in the mode of goodness. If his heart is in the mode of passion, his faith is also in the mode of passion. And if his heart is in the mode of darkness, illusion, his faith is also thus contaminated. Thus, can you scroll up, please?
Yeah, just trying to go.
Thus, we find different types of faith in this world, and there are different types of religions due to different types of faith. The real principle of religious faith is situated in the mode of pure goodness, but because the heart is tainted, we find different types of religious principles. Thus, according to different types of faith, there are different kinds of worship. Sukarupa Mataji.
That's it. That's finished now. The verse is finished. Okay, so should we get going? Reflections on this? And
There's a
Vaishnavi,
lot of
what was your question from yesterday? Maybe we can start with that.
Actually, Mataji, I got the answer in the purport.
Okay.
But you see, now reading this, the last line, thus, according to different types of faith, there are different kinds of worship. Now, the person who is in the mode of darkness, what will be, how will he worship, Mataji? He will worship the material things.
Yes, definitely. Definitely he'll worship material things, but what type of material things?
Yeah, that is what I wanted to know. Like, you see, if he is fond of drinking or smoking or something like that, so he will worship those kind of things. He is in the mode of darkness and he is doing those kind of things. And that means he's worshipping such things because he doesn't know who God is actually.
Mataji, he will worship like the figure, like someone who is very popular. Like the other day you were telling. I don't know whether I'm right.
Well, yeah, and that worship can also, like when you pick up a figure to worship, which is not God, then that faith and that worship can also be in lower, two different lower modes, right? I mean, you could worship somebody because he's such a philanthropist and anthropologist and things like that. You could be worshiping him in the mode of passion. But worshiping in the mode of ignorance is that, there's some film star who comes and says, the best thing is to smoke, right? And he has a nice picture of him standing like that with a cigarette in his hand, and a teenager is like, wow, and puts a picture of him and gets out of the bed every day and then bows down to him. That's worship in the mode of, ignorance. Also, yanti deva vrata devan pitrin janti pritrivataha bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti majiyajinopi mam. So it talks about the different types of worship. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrin yanti pritrivataha bhutani yanti bhuteja. Those who worship the ghosts will go to the planet of the ghosts, right? So you might just wonder that who could be a person who would want to worship ghosts, right? I mean, as such, we are scared of them, right? So sometimes when people want to get,
Right, madam.
yeah, so sometimes when people want to get mystic powers of a lower kind, now you can get mystic powers also out of different heights, right? So when you have base desire of getting base mystic powers, then you do worship, dead bodies, and actually sit on dead bodies and worship ghosts, etc., like that. So those are all worship in the mode of ignorance. And let's hear more from Sadhna Mataji, because I see she has raised her hand there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you just scroll up a bit, sorry, there was a question about the way the heart comes into this.
Yes.
It is back there, I think. It says the modes of material nature, the contaminated modes of nature expand into the heart. Therefore, according to the position of the heart in contact with the particular mode of material nature, one's faith is established. That sentence, I wasn't sure how to interpret that.
How to translate that in the heart? Yeah, we just have to look inside the heart. Yeah, we just have to look inside the heart. And so what is there inside the heart? What is there inside our hearts?
Matma.
Soul and supreme soul, super soul.
Right? And then also our mind is also there. Our mind is also there.
Oh, okay.
Right? That is the part that is being influenced by the modes. Because then that will start generating.
And Mataji, intelligence is in, and
Yes.
Mataji, intelligence is in brain.
No, it's also in the heart. These are subtle things.
Okay.
Now you were going to say something, Vaishana Mataji, on the previous discussion. I cut you off.
Yeah, Mataji, like you see, chain smoker, I have heard and seen also a few chain smokers. Mataji, when they get up early in the morning, first thing they look for the pack of cigarettes.
Yes.
So they are always in the mode of goodness. What are they going to worship?
They are always in the mode of goodness?
No, in the mode of ignorance.
Yeah. So worship doesn't mean necessarily that you have taken a diya in your hand and you are worshipping. Worship comes from the
Having
word,
faith in God is also.
I didn't understand your
Yes,
question. Can you repeat that?
Yes, I remember one thing. You see, while asking this question, I remembered one thing of Srila Prabhupada. He said that he was making the, scriptures was making the deity of
Jagannath.
Jagannath ji. And he was smoking and kept the cigarette on top of the deity only, and he was smoking.
Yes.
And then Srila Prabhupada told him that don't do this.
Yes.
So Mataji, I really wonder, you see, how things are. Is it, Mataji, the one who smokes or drinks or does all these kind of things, if a person uh, there are times when he is not doing all these things, but he has full faith in God. There is a singer, Mataji. He is a beautiful singer. I mean, his voice is so melodious. He is no more now. His voice was so melodious. He used to give beautiful tunes on Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but he never believed in God. What is his position, Mataji? He is in which mode?
So while he's see, that's why it comes from the heart. And so two things. One was about and I'm forgetting the name of the Prabhuji who he wrote the book Chasing the Rhinoceros, Chasing the Rhinoceros. But anyway, the one
Shyam Sundar Prabhu.
yes,
Shyam
yes.
Sundar Prabhu.
So he was the one who was smoking and putting the cigarette there, right? And so that's what it is saying, that the text that I've highlighted over there, right, on the screen. So it says that there is purity, but here there is no purity. The things can get mingled and contaminated. So this, what you said, was a typical example for contamination, right? So again, you have to look inside the heart and see. So in the case of this person, the contamination, there is goodness in his heart. He's doing something for Jagannath, he's doing something for his spiritual master, but there's an ignorant part also. He doesn't know. Shastra Vidim, Ye Shastra Vidim Utsrijya. He has forgotten the Shastra Vidhi, the injunctions of the Shastra, that or does not know, is ignorant of the injunction that you should not be smoking while you are doing worship of the, or doing some seva for the Lord. Right. So that's one aspect of him, right? So the starting point for him is there is faith for the Lord, and it is getting mixed by ignorance, right? On the other hand, on the extreme end, you have a singer. You have a singer who is who is singing. So it is starting from here. His faith is that if I sing beautifully, it doesn't matter what I'm singing, I'm going to get the money from singing. That is where his faith is. Right? Now, to ask the question that what about him? Right? So now here the good thing is that the holy name will have its effect on him or her, whoever that singer was. Might not happen in this life, but he has gained sukriti, neha vikramo nashosi pratyavayo na vidyate. Even a small amount that you do gets carried over. So at least that person sang and sang and sang and sang and sang, must have practiced hours and hours and hours to become a public figure in the singing arena, right? So you have to see where the beginning is, where the root is, and that's where the mingling happens. And it is very amazing that how many modes of material nature are there? Three, right? And they can mix with each other. So when you mix with each other, you can have, remember once just a few months ago, I had done the math for you. I said, okay, there is purely goodness, there's purely passion, and there's purely ignorance. That's one way.
81.
Then you can have, 81 Sutapa remembers. And then there was, goodness mixed with passion, goodness mixed with ignorance, right? And then we have passion mixed with ignorance, like that. And then the three also mix in some order like that. So this combination is terrible. I mean, like, I'll give you a practical example of that, right? Those who study colors, or those who study physics or colorology or color science, whatever that is called, we always talk about three base colors, right? What are the three base colors?
Red,
blue, and
Red,
green.
yellow, and blue, Mataji.
Red,
blue, and green.
Red, yellow, and
green.
blue.
Right? Yeah. So there are three colors, and then when you mix them, so
Yeah,
like if you take
RBG, Mataji.
RBG, right? So and then when you start mixing them in together, right? And this is from light, from light. When you take red light and mix it with this light, or even forgetting about light, let's take the painting palette, right? The watercolors that we have. Let's take the three basic colors that we use there. There is red, there is blue, and there is yellow. Okay. When you take blue and you mix yellow in it, what do you get?
Green.
Green. Okay. Now when you take red and you mix blue in it, what do you get?
Brown.
Purple.
Purple.
Okay. And then when you take red and you mix yellow in
Red
it,
and green. Orange.
Orange, right? So you see, so there is some mix there, right? So then from these three colors, you got three more, and I just combined just a few of them. Now you can take orange and mix some green in it, right? You can take some purple and mix some orange in it. So this way, the combinations go completely. You can see how it goes, And similarly here also, when the modes of these, we just start with 3 modes, but the combinations can become mind boggling. And it is because of this combination that we have the 8,400,000 species of life. It, the kind of body is dependent to some extent on the modes of material nature. And actually, this is a question that Arjuna asks Krishna in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8. Is that kim tad bhram kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adhibhutam cha kim proktam adhidevam kim uchyate. So he's asking that question, and then in the third verse from the 8th chapter, Krishna answers that question. And let me just bring it up here for you, and we can look at it. 8:3. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. So he's giving the answer there. And whose turn is it to read?
Shukarupa Mataji.
All right, Shukarupa Mataji, please read.
Yes, Mataji. Yeah, I can see, Mataji. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabdavo Dhyatamam Uchayet Bhuta Bhava Bho Bhava Karo Visagra Karma
Samgitaha. All right. Okay, who's going to give us the synonyms?
I think Namaste has joined.
You can't read.
Oh,
Sukrupa Mataji.
Yeah, I can do that. Do you want me to go ahead and do that? Read the.
Oh, you just read that?
Yeah.
I just read the verse.
So I'll do that then. Nobody's there, no? Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Aksharam, indestructible, Brahma, Brahman, Paramam, transcendental, Swabhava, eternal nature, Adhyatmam, the self, Uchayate is called, Bhuta Bhava Udbhava Bhuta Bhava Udbhava Kara.
Udbhav.
I'm sorry. Bhuta Bhava Udbhava Kara. Producing the material bodies of the living entities. Visarga, creation, karma, fruitive activities. Samjnanita. Samgitaha is called. Samgitaha is called.
So here he's talking about producing the material bodies of living entities. So, there's a combination there. Okay, and then let's read it.
Udbhavakara. Yeah. Udbhavakara. Yeah. Producing.
Udbhav, not Udhav. Udbhava. Okay. Now let's go further to Simi Mataji, who is going to read.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. Suttapamat.
But Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is Para-Brahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Para-Brahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the Lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in the material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. Shraddha Mataji.
In Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jivatma and Brahman, but he is never called Para-Brahman. The living entity, Jivatma, takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter. Sometimes he identifies himself with the superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy. According to his identification with material or spiritual nature, he receives a material or spiritual body. In material nature, he may take a body from any of the 8,400,000 species of life, but in spiritual nature, he has only one body. In material nature, he is manifested sometimes as a man, demigod, animal, beast, bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain materially heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices, yagna, but when his merit is exhausted, he returns to earth again in the form of a man. This process is called karma. Varshana Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. The Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offerings are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets, clouds, the earth, man and a woman, and the 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, the enjoyer on the moon, rain, grain, and semen. Hare Krishna.
In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends to earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains, and the grains are eaten by man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Priyanka Mataji left. Archana Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Impersonalist commentators on the Bhagavad Gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of Jiva in the material world, and to substantiate this, they refer to chapter 15, verse 7 of the Gita. But in this verse, the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of myself. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord, Achyuta, never falls down. Therefore, this assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of Jiva is not acceptable. It is important to remember that in Vedic Brahman, the living entity is distinguished from Para Brahman, the Supreme Lord.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Continuing on with more verses in support of, continuing on with more verses that are along the lines of what we're thinking. Chapter 13, verse number 22, very famous verse. And who's going to read now?
Meera Mataji.
Okay. Meera Mataji.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Purusaha prakriti stiho hi bhunte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sad asad yoni janmasu. Hare Krishna.
Aruni Mataji reading.
Yeah.
Okay, go
ahead. Purushaha, the living entity, Prakriti Staha, being situated in the material energy. He certainly, Bhunkte, enjoys. Prakriti Jan, produced by the material nature. Gunan, the modes of nature. Karanam, the cause. Gunasangaha, the association with the modes of nature, asya of the living entity, sataset in good and bad, yoni species of life, janmasu in births.
Translation. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with the material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species.
Purport. This verse is very important for an
Mataji, can I
understanding.
read?
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Amma.
Sorry, Garima Mataji, we missed seeing you.
This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another, just as one change dresses. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Hare Krishna Mataji, Vindhyavali Mataji, you can read.
Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. Hare Krishna. Simi Mataji.
How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with the different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. This is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another, because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. That change can be affected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here. Arjuna is hearing the signs of God from Krishna, the living entity. If he submits to his hearing process, he'll lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature, and gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life.
Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay, so kind of these words are kind of telling us about how it's a cyclical thing, right? You have a desire, and because of the desire, you also develop a faith that if I do this, then this will be beneficial to me. And when the desire is very strong, even when the desire is strong, and it's always the soul that desires things, and so when the soul because of the desire, the mind will also, because mind is subordinate to the soul, mind will also start presenting things which will make him think that yes, this is the best thing. For example, if my desire is to become smart and or to look smart, and I come across a person with a cigarette in the hand, and somewhere in my subconscious there's the desire to smoke, then the mind will present options on how I can go and smoke. And then the intelligent also gets bewildered under the influence of such a strong desire, and the intelligence also start thinking and going along the lines of why this is beneficial, all the good that will come out if I start smoking. And then the person goes along into that line. So the root, there is always a desire, and because of the desire, and that this was just a simple example of the desires that you can still perform while you are in a human body. But I can have desires which cannot be done by human body, and for that I will then be awarded, if the desire is very strong and doesn't get away from my system, then I will be awarded a suitable body in my next life. So the kind of body that you got awarded depends on many things, at least two things, right? One is that what your desires are, And the second is what your karmic reactions are there in store for you. So based on the combination of the two, you will get a suitable body. For example, if a person, doesn't want to go to college, says that I should get some free food, right? Also likes to eat meat and also likes to, be in control. When some people give him grief, he wants to be able to do, scare other people away. He might get a body of a dog in his next life. Now, because of all his desires that are there. But then there is karma also that comes into picture, and which would be that, what type of a dog are you? Are you a Chihuahua or are you a German Shepherd? Are you a Dalmatian? And in whose house are you? Are you still living in a forest and you're free, or are you confined into a home? Right? So, are you confined into a home where the dog is the best? Right? The dog comes and sleeps in the same bed as you do, right? And the dog is taken to a manicure and a pedicure and gets shampoo and things like that and ribbons in the head. That's also a dog's body, but uh, living in a different style. Which country the dog is living in? All those things come into picture, and and this is, yeah, the dog is associating with the modes of material nature. Right? So it all comes from there, and so there's all that shraddha, that faith was there, that there is some pleasure coming out of eating meat, raw meat, right? Like that. So it is a very, very complicated thing. And but the good thing is that here the verse was saying that, how do I then get rid of that, right? Or have got these desires, and which are there from times immemorial. These desires are there for me, right? So how do I get rid of that? Right? I mean, the thing is that now we have found ourselves in this situation, that here we are in a tiny planet inside a huge universe, and they tell us that there are many, many universes like this. So I am here confined in a universe, and not only that, I'm also confined within this body, that I cannot step out on my own will from a body. So really, we are in a prison if you look at it from that perspective. And so the question is that, how do I get out of this prison? And so in the purport, we said that, that you follow the regulations of the scriptures. You follow and get a special master, and they will guide you. So there is still hope. And that is why the 17th chapter that we are reading, it started with this question, Ye Shastra Vidhim Utsrijya, Bhajante Shraddhaman Yanvita, that those who are doing worshiping, they are worshiping. And right. And I said, worshiping is that you find that there is somebody who is worthwhile. So worship word comes from worthship. It's a short form of that. So you're finding somebody who's worth it. The man with a cigarette, I think he's worth something. He's so cool, right? So who you worship, some film actor, I think they're very cool because maybe they have money, they've got looks, they've got charisma, right? Or I might worship the Supreme Personality of the Godhead because I know he's Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, right? Like that. So where are you? And so who you worship again is coming from what is there in your heart. And in the heart, that conviction is there. I'm going to buy a boat and I'll be happy. And I'm going to sell a boat and I'll be happy. You see how the extreme ways that your Shraddha is fluctuating from here to there. And when the Shraddha is like that, then it is known as Komal Shraddha. It can be swayed in any direction. But when the Shraddha becomes strong, like a banyan tree, right? Komal Shraddha is like a banana tree. You see how soft the banana tree is? You can move it. But a banyan tree, it's so rigid, you cannot do that. So faith in the Supreme has got to become like a banyan tree. And the Shastras and the spiritual master will help us in doing that. So yes, are we in the material nature? Yes. Are we the marginal energy? Yes, we are. But then, like Prabhupada says, that we are like a tiny spark. And he had referred to that verse, um, Mame vancho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha, that they are all parts and parcel of the Lord. So if the Lord is a big fire, then I'm a tiny spark in that fire. And so it is for the good of the tiny spark to stay within the fire. Because as soon as a tiny spark moves out of the fire, right? How many of you have seen charcoal wood burning?
Yeah.
Have you seen
Same
sparks
mother.
fly? Have you seen sparks fly out of that? Then what happens
Yes, yes.
to the spark? What happens to the spark that flies out of the fire? What happens to it? Yes, go ahead. Tell me, Sukamal Radhe Mataji.
It burns out.
It burns out. It extinguishes itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is what will happen to us. And in this case, the soul cannot be extinguished because it's indestructible, immeasurable, right? So here the extinction is that we completely forget who we are. And so there is a very nice verse actually in Srimad Bhagavatam, from Srimad Bhagavatam, which I like to bring, bring in over here in in support of what I'm saying, as to when a living entity goes away and gets involved in in material nature, his thinking, where his heart is and his thinking, etc., go like. I'll just bring up the verse because you laugh. You all know this verse. And let me see, find this verse here. I think it's in the 10th canto. It's 84. 10th is a big chapter, big canto. 84 and 84. And it should be 13. Yes, yes. And now whose turn is it to read it? And I'll begin sharing the screen with you all.
Me, Mataji.
Sutapa Mataji. Okay, Sutapa Mataji. Here you go. So, yeah.
Mataji, can you give me the tune?
यस्यात्मा बुद्धि गुणपे त्रिधातुके स्वधि कलत्रादिषु भौम इज्यदिः यति बुद्धिः सलिलेन कर्हिचित् जनेषु अभिज्ञेषु स एव गोखरः. Now give it a try.
यशात्म बुद्धि कुणपे त्रिधातुके स्वाधि कलद्राशु यजधे तत्तीर्थबुद्धि शलिलेन कर्हिचित् जनेष्व अभिज्ञानेषु शायैव गोकराः.
Okay, good. And next person can give us the meanings, word meanings.
Yasya, whose, Atma as his self, Buddhi idea, Kunape in a corpse-like body, Three Dutku Tatuke, made of three basic elements, Swa as his own, Dihi idea, Kalatra adishu in wife, and so on. Baume, isn't it? Bhume, in earth.
Bhame.
In earth. Ijaya as worshipable, Dihi idea, Yat whose, Tirtha as a place of pilgrimage, Buddhi idea, Salila in water, Nakarchit never, Janeshu in man, Abhijaneshu wise, Saha he ever indeed, Kaha a cow, Karaha or an ass.
Okay, so let's see the translation.
Hare Krishna Mataji. One who identifies his self as the inert body composed of mucus, bile, and air, who assumes his wife and family are permanently his own, who thinks an earthen image or the land of his birth is worshipable, or who sees a place of pilgrimage as merely the water there, but who never identifies himself with feels with with feels kinship with worship, or even visits those who are wise in spiritual truth. Such a person is no better than a cow or an ass.
See, so this is
Hare
such a strong statement, and you can see how much mingling with and how much identification with the material nature can happen here. right? It's totally in the mode of material nature there. Starts with
What is this?
identifying. It starts with identifying himself, right? Yasyatma buddhi kunupetu dhatuke. So he thinks his body, which is like a dead body, which is the body, material body is a dead body, and he thinks that this material body is like that. Then he thinks that he is. So that's one, right? His yasatma swadhi kalatradeshu bhama ijjati, and then he thinks that my wife and whoever, whatever comes together with the wife, the kids and all, they are my own, they are mine. And bhama ijjati, wherever you are born, this is my country, and that is your country. So I should encroach upon your country. The bhama ijjati, my country is my place of worship, right? That is where the heart is lying in the worship. Yatirtha buddhi salilina karchit. And where they go to the places of pilgrimage, and all that they see is that, okay, there's a Ganges over there in Haridwar, and all that I have to do is to go and take a dip in the Ganges and come back. That's what my duty is as far as going to the pilgrimage is concerned. But we don't go to the pilgrimage to take a bath in the water. Why would you like to take a bath in the water? Everybody's washing their sins in that water. Right? So the idea of going to a pilgrimage is to go there and listen to the Mahatmas who are sitting there and who are giving you Krishna Katha. That is the idea of going to a pilgrimage and not just taking a dip in the water. It is actually these Mahatmas who are reciting all this wonderful Krishna Katha throughout the day at the pilgrimages. When they go and take a dip in the Ganges gets purified. And then we can go and dip into it like that, right? So Gyaneshu Jab, okay, so you can understand that these two people are like a cow and an ass. And so as we can understand, right, as we know, Gadha hai, Gadi hai, we grew up hearing these words. So ass. But then what about the cow? The cow is such a worshipful object. Why, and Krishna's favorite, why is the cow being mentioned over here, right? The reason for that is that the cow is, when a cow loses its the bachra, the calf, right? Sometimes the calf dies. So when the calf dies, the cow stops to give milk, but we need the milk. So what people do is that they skin the calf, the dead calf, and they stuff straw in it, and they make it look like a calf. And then they take that calf to the cow, and the cow looks at, thinks that it is its own calf, and then starts to give the milk. So basically, what the cow does is the cow is thinking that something which is dead is actually alive. A calf stuffed with a straw is actually dead, but he thinks it's alive. Similarly, we are living in this body, and we are thinking that this body is alive, and actually this body is either me or myself or an
That's
extension
very
of
strong.
myself. So it's a very, very strong
Beautiful
verse.
one.
And
Very strong.
and I do see that there are some hands which are being raised, but I'll have to defer those questions till tomorrow because we are past our 8 o'clock timeline over here. Okay. So hold on to the thought, Parshana Mataji. Hold on to the thought, Sutapa Mataji. Thursday we'll continue.
No problem.
Yes,
thank you, Mataji.
All right.
Thank you, Mataji.
All right, and I didn't even get a chance
Thank you so much.
to welcome all those who are watching us here on Facebook, which includes our regulars. So Vidyavadu Devi Tachi Mataji, Vijay Lakshmi Mataji, Dilip Bhai Patel Prabhu, Hemlata Mataji, and Deena Mataji. I'm seeing her for the first time. Neelam Mataji, Ruchi Mataji, Lalita Prasad Prabhu, Dandat Pranams, and Dandat Pranams to all of you, dear devotees, for coming and joining us here, and also helping me maintain the times that I have over here. Okay, so we will see you again. Talk to you again.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.